Hey everybody, how's it going? Max with BuzzTox here, and I'm finally back with another live stream. Really just discussing Westworld Season 2 in its entirety and the finale and what to expect for Season 3 going forward. I'm sorry it's been so long. I got a lot of stuff going on right now. And I think after this live stream, I'm going to do a couple of Westworld videos, and then I'm going to take about a week off. I'm going to start watching more Game of Thrones. I need to start bringing that back into the channel, and I need to relaunch my Game of Thrones predictions. I have episode 3 pretty much written up. It's a pretty epic episode, and I still have a lot more writing to do on that. Westworld, I've got a season 3 video that I want to really throw out there. But to be honest, I'm still trying to piece together what this season was trying to communicate to us, and I'm trying to piece together how they're going to move forward. I might do a video, and I'm not, I had my issues with the finale of Westworld, and I still feel that way, but I still think that they can produce a good season 3. But I am debating, and let me know what you guys think, but I think I could rewrite the finale and have it in a way where it still finishes the way it was meant to be finished, but there were certain inconsistencies that drive me crazy, and there's certain unnecessary plot points that I didn't necessarily understand. I gotta say, I loved Bernard's journey this whole season. I said from the beginning, Westworld Season 1 was through the context of Dolores, her finding the maze and her center of consciousness, whereas this season was centered around Bernard and Bernard's journey to his own center. And I loved in episode 10 how we finally saw Bernard reach his own center. Much like Dolores was talking to Arnold, we see Bernard talking to Ford. And I feel like it developed such a strong relationship between them. And I thought it was such a powerful scene, and I absolutely loved it. But why was it just thrown in there that Ford said Maeve was his favorite? These are the kind of inconsistencies where I'm kind of drawing from is what did that do? What purpose did saying that Ford's favorite is Maeve, what purpose does that serve? If they were going to play it out, fantastic. But I feel like it didn't go anywhere. I think it would be so much more compelling if we had Ford share that scene with Bernard, saying, I built you to be based off Arnold, but I found that you're my favorite because you aren't Arnold. You've become Bernard. You're something unique. And I take pride in what you've become. I think that's way more compelling. I feel like they did that with Ford and Maeve almost just to exposition and let the audience know that Maeve chose to save her daughter and to provide that context. But even after all that, Maeve was built up to this like amazing character journey finding her daughter, but we found out it really didn't lead to anything. She sacrificed herself and her daughter went through the door, and Maeve ended up dying. But by the way, just a couple shots killed her. With Dolores, she took like 5 shots and she was totally fine. So it's these inconsistencies in the show that are driving me crazy, because it is such an excellent show. It is so well written. And if you're a show like Westworld and you're relying on intricate detail and plot points and all these consistencies, you need to show up. You can't fumble around with the plot in that way. Everything has to add up. Everything has to make sense. And I think the finale didn't capitalize on what they put forward. And I'm the first one to tell you the biggest, I don't want to dread on this episode. It was a good episode, but I feel like once again, William was really mishandled to the point where I'm really questioning what's going on here, because, season 1, we followed Men in Black and William, and we discovered that this evil man, the Man in Black, this evil guy who goes into the park, he's so much more. He's a guy who's damaged because of his love for Dolores. And we learned more about that in episode 9 before the finale, that, he's always felt like he belonged in the wrong world. And he feels like every choice he's made, I feel like every choice that William has made is to hide who he truly is. And on top of all that, we even in episode 2 of this season, he says, I have issues with the judgment that was passed on me, because he said up until this point, the stakes weren't real. Nothing was legitimate. So I find it really weird how they're painting him as such a villain when his decisions had no consequence. They didn't mean anything. And when he went in there the last time, he saved Lawrence. He was doing these good choices. Granted, he did kill his daughter, but that was because he was paranoid. He was caught between worlds. So I think they could have played that a lot better. And with William, where he's going to go in the future, I really don't know, because they kept touching on fidelity testing, trying to pass an individual into a living, breathing body. And that was a plot point that was brought up again, and yet it wasn't capitalized on at all. And then we learned that William is now being tested for fidelity by hosts in a far dystopian future, which I'm really trying to understand the context of, because you guys know my theory. I've said over and over again that William belongs in the wrong world. They literally told us that in episode 9. So of course I'm disappointed, because they were literally going in the direction that I was predicting. And you'd think that the whole basis of fidelity testing is they said that your mind rejects reality. And they set this up so well right up to episode 9 that William's mind was already adapted to Westworld, that he could make that transition. And now they just kind of threw that away by putting him in this host body. So I'm interested in hearing your guys' theories of why William is, like, what his role is now in the future, especially that he's printed. Because I think he was hugely underused, and everything that he was led to this whole season really didn't go anywhere. He wanted to find the door. Ford, when he was focused on in episode 9 too, Ford built this storyline for William, and it led nowhere. He didn't achieve anything. He didn't get anything. There was no conclusion to any of this. So maybe I can hold out hope and say that this storyline is going to play out in future seasons, but in my mind, they wrapped it up. This door that Ford wanted William to get, really, it wasn't anything. And William didn't even get to do what he wanted to do and destroy the forge. So with that, I'm left very confused. And with this show, more than any, we see the producers of the show. They're always coming forward and talking about the show. And these producers, they think that William is a villain. They think he's a horrible person. And they're just painting him as a psychopathic, just a psycho. And I think that's very misrepresented. And there's just so much depth there that I feel like they're discounting. So I am a little bit annoyed with that. And another thing with the producers is they keep coming forward on how they feel about the human condition. Now, I'm not a person who's going to defend humanity. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's important to look within ourselves, understand where we come from, who we are. And their thesis is fine. Okay. And that thesis is that the human drive is to survive. That's essentially what they were saying. And they keep pushing that in our heads, that the reason why hosts are better than humans is because hosts are truly free, because they have the will to change their fundamental drives, that they're not a slave to nature. But I think they're taking that and they're running it into the ground to the point where it doesn't make any sense anymore, and they're kind of contradicting themselves. Like, they're jumping in the boat saying that humans will always try and survive no matter what. And then they show us James Delos, like, his one decision that defined him was him getting rid of his son, which I still don't necessarily understand the context of that. I feel like it could have been much better handled. The human condition, William killing his own daughter. And then they give us all these negative things, why humans are bad. This guy, William, killed his own daughter. He's a monster, blah, 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 even though they discounted all the other crap he went through. But then they discount all the other characters that we see as well. They don't mention Felix making the decision to go and save Maeve. They don't talk about Sizemore, who essentially changed his fundamental drive to survive, because that's what their hypothesis is that humans don't change their fundamental drives. Humans are flawed, whatever. even though we see Sizemore sacrifice himself for Maeve. So you could tell us that he changed his fundamental drives. So I feel like what they're trying to tell us, they're disproving. Unless in the future they're trying to create a dialogue or a debate as to what's right. That humans aren't all bad. But see, that's the one thing where I'm really confused, because they're trying to tell us that humans are bad. Their fundamental drive is to survive, but yet we're seeing inconsistencies with that. We're seeing Sizemore sacrifice himself, all these things. And I think I really want them to fix that position, especially with William, that like they created, and that's another thing with William, they created this host of William that is based off the psychopathic character that they created him to be. They never got any recordings of William before Westworld open, or before he went into the park with Dolores. They never saw the good side of William. So, you know, I'm a little on this finale. I'm gonna go to the chat now. It's enough rambling for me. Programmer of video games, what's going on, buddy? Thank you so much for coming. Brian Siemens, what's going on? Or Simmons, I don't know how to say your name. The finale was kind of a bummer for me too, man. Yeah, you know, we'll see what happens. Like, I would have been great with the finale if they just capitalized on everything. Like the first 9 episodes, they had all their ducks in a row. Everything was lined up, everything was perfect, and they just couldn't take it home. They didn't capitalize on anything that they introduced, which is making me kind of debate that, you know, maybe we'll see this in season 3. Maybe we'll see more stuff come out. Maybe they're just trying to save us more. But it's a lot different than season 1. Season 1, they gave us a lot of questions, and then they gave us definitive answers to everything that they set up, and it felt very concluded, very nice. And yeah, this season they gave us a lot of questions, and they just gave us answers that kind of came out of nowhere, and they just didn't apply. Like, why was there a whole episode based on Akichita, which is one of my favorite episodes of the season? But why would they base an episode on Akichita to just have him go through the door? The only reason why is because of emotional significance. It feels more powerful. Why would episode 9 be the penultimate episode of the show? You don't have a penultimate episode if it doesn't conclude in the finale. They followed William and gave him so much depth and so much meaning and understanding, and then they threw it all away. Like, why was there all this character development in episode 9 for William to have no nothing? Like in episode 10, he got picked up by Dolores, which to me doesn't even make any sense anyway. Dolores is like, you know, I need your help to make it to the Valley Beyond. Doesn't really make any sense. He turned on Dolores. He shot his fingers off and he went in an elevator. That's what happened. And you can't do stuff like that if you build up such a powerful character like William, and they based the whole penultimate episode on him. And it just didn't go anywhere. And Maeve and her daughter, Shogun World. What happened in Shogun World? It was like they wrote it in there just to show us Shogun World. It was just a cinematic thing. She was just, they walked into a facility and they ended up in the wrong place, and that was horribly written. They should have written it that she was transferred into Shogun World and make Maeve the virus that gives everyone those reveries, because then the plot at least serves some purpose, because Shogun World served absolutely no purpose at all. So that's just what I'm saying, is that they implemented a lot of really cool concepts, but they all didn't go anywhere. And little things that they did introduce, like Akichita, Shogun World, they were introduced for no reason, just for the sake of, you know, appealing to us, where I felt like it could have been written better. But anyways, the programmer of video games. Maybe season 3 may show the relationship between Maeve and Ford, but it does make sense for Bernard to be Ford's favorite. Yeah, that's how I feel. I just feel like they set up Bernard to be Ford's favorite, but yet they chose Maeve, which doesn't make any sense. Like, to me, and this season, Maeve died, and I think Maeve's key role is her relationship with the humans. is that she has this special connection. She had Sizemore sacrifice himself for her. She had Felix making the decision to risk his own life to save her. And that's what makes her so unique. And I find right now that the two leads are Bernard and Dolores, and they have two differences in ideologies. They are both conscious. We both saw their journey. In season 1, we saw Dolores communicate with herself and find her own center, and she did that with Arnold. And then we see Bernard in this season go through his journey and talk to Ford and then himself. And I think it would be this perfect duality where you have Arnold, who was the good guy who wanted to stop the park, who wanted to save the hosts, shadowing Dolores, who is this bringer of death and can be seen as this villain role. And then you have Bernard, who is more of the good guy, but he's a product of Ford, who is the more conniving, evil one of the two. So I think it creates this great duality where you have Arnold is seen as almost the god of the hosts, and Ford was seen as the devil. But yet Ford's favorite host was Bernard, who's seen as this hero, and Arnold's favorite is this Dolores, who is essentially the villain. So I think that would be an interesting duality, and I think they missed the boat with that one, with making Ford Maeve's favorite. So I don't understand why Maeve is Ford's favorite. It honestly doesn't make any sense. But that's my opinion. Julianne, some things have to be consistent when you do a puzzle. I agree, and that's the key with a show. Is the show counts on giving you all these plot points, and if you're good, and if the storytelling is really good, you can really look and see trends and try and predict the show. And I think what they try to do is they gave us all of these themes and plot points to predict the show, but then they're like, let's just grab something and throw it out of nowhere. Like, if you look at like the 10 episodes of Westworld season 1, you can go back and be like, wow, in episode 1, they hinted that Bernard was a host. Wow. In episode, you can look at my breakdowns. In episode 4, 5, 6, they were showing timelines through like the jump from Dolores with William to Dolores going on her own journey, like 30 years ago to the present. They were doing very key cuts that you couldn't notice, but you could at least go back and look at it and be like, wow, look, they actually did it. Whereas this season, if you look back, there is no hint whatsoever at the door being a virtual world. There is no hint at all. The only hint that there is a Akichita saying that it's this secret world where he gets everything he wants. And that's baseless because Akichita didn't know that. It was purely like religion and culture and the way he felt. What they did hint about the door is the transition, about it's a different state that you can cross over. They were kind of hinting at that in these other interesting themes. With Fidelity, it was the transfer into a human body, or a host body from a human consciousness. So I just think some of the stuff just wasn't laid down properly, and some stuff really just came out of nowhere. The programmer of video games says, oh, what happened here? Came to the conclusion that Ford's game for William was nothing but Fidelity for host hybrid version, not the present William. That's okay. So that's a good interpretation because it works into season 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. And I like that, the game to the door. And I like that because it still kind of backs up what I was saying, that the door is the transition from human consciousness into a host body. Yeah, and he pursues the door because of that Fidelity testing. But then I think there's a certain point where Ford gets deleted and his story isn't really relevant anymore. Like, what made them... What is making them now start to bring back William and test for Fidelity? That's the one thing that I don't understand. And just based on my predictions, I think that there was a little bit of a wasted opportunity because they talked so much. They beat us over the head with the fact that humans can't make, or humans have a hard time being transferred into a host body because their mind can't handle that reality. And they beat us over the head that William's reality belonged in Westworld. So he is the perfect candidate to be transferred into a host body. And they didn't do that. So, and it's annoying me how William is having a hard time in the end credit scene William's having a hard time coming to terms with that and breaking his code. And one thing that I find that he says that I like a lot is he says that he wants to prove that nobody can tell him what choices he can make, but yet every time he's proven wrong. I just figured William would be the character who would transfer successfully because he's so unique. And with these choices, I'm honestly a bit confused because that host William that we see, he's based off of the choices that he's made in the park as a villain, and he's not based off the good guy act. And I think William, they keep talking about William and the choices he's made, and William is confident that they can't figure out the choices he would make. And I think William is right because he's so goddamn complicated. Because William's basis of creating Fidelity is to watch people's choices. But I keep saying that every choice William has ever made has been to hide who he truly is. Every choice that he made is to hide that he is a man who belongs in Westworld. And he loves belonging to that world. So I think he's right. And the hosts, I feel like they won't be able to find it either because every choice that he's ever made is just a front. It's to hide who he is. So I'm interested to see where they go with that. Hike Sakane, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Hey, how's it going? What do you think about the last second rewrites, like making Stubbs a host on the inside? I don't know what you mean by last second rewrites. Maybe you know something that I don't. But yeah, making Ashley a host on the inside, I think the whole thing with Ashley being a host, they didn't be like, oh, he's a host, but they pretty much insinuated where he's like, my core drives are here. I was hired by Ford. They heavily insinuate that he's a host. And I think it didn't come necessarily out of nowhere because, there was always room to say that Ashley was a host. I almost wish that they didn't do it because they relied on that trope last season and it was so effective. But now I think they're starting to break it into the ground where enough with surprises that people are hosts. We've done it over and over again. So I want something unique. But to be honest, the fact that Ashley's a host, I'm fine with it. And I think he's going to be really significant to season 3 because I think Dolores and Bernard and whoever's in Charlotte Hale's body, they're going to be operating outside. And the show's called Westworld. I think we're going to keep going into Westworld and kind of checking in, seeing what's happening. And I think we got a lot of key characters there. We have Felix and Sylvester, and they're going to probably resurrect Maeve. Maeve's probably going to want to go and bring back some key hosts. And I think Ashley's going to go on that journey, and he's going to participate in helping with that. 432 Nick, do you think that this will end up like Lost? I got to be honest, I haven't watched Lost, but I understand that it was based off of like intrigue, and it was similar to Westworld, I guess, in that aspect, but it kind of had a cop-out ending. I don't know with Westworld. The one thing that makes me confident in this show is that I think they know where it's going to end. I think they have a definitive end and where it's going to go. And I think even though I disagree with what they're doing with William, I think they're showing that they know where this is going to end up because we see William in this dystopian world. And I think the show is going to lead to that point. So I think the show will end up a bit different than Lost because I honestly feel like Lost, and this is someone who hasn't watched it. This is just me just kind of rambling on, but my guess would be that Lost kind of just threw their ending in there. Whereas I think Westworld now has a planned destination on where it's going to end. But yeah, Buffy Targaryen, what were your thoughts on William not passing Fidelity for X number of years? Personally, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all because we saw that process with James Delos, and I feel like this show dived into William's character so deep, and they didn't capitalize on any of it. So I feel like he wouldn't need to go through Fidelity to that extent. And I'm annoyed because this character is based off of all of William's negative choices in the park and not actually based on William himself. So that is interesting. But one key thing with William is they always play on that thing. You live as long as the last person who remembers you. And Dolores does think that William is a monster, which I don't know. But she thinks that William is a monster. And but she remembers the good times, and she remembers the good person who William used to be. So maybe there's something there. But in terms of William testing for Fidelity right now, I have no idea why they're doing it. I can't really see the logic. In one of the comments, actually, someone posted a very interesting theory. They said that William's credibility testing in the distant future is because there was a battle between Dolores and Bernard has lost, Dolores has won, which means that humanity is on the decline. And Bernard is going to this abandoned Westworld in an attempt to bring William back as a weapon against Dolores, which, I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting theory. I remember saying in the reaction and review video that I hope that William isn't like a Terminator character where he's just a villain, because there's so much to his character. But I'm really interested to see why they want him, because there's no new revelations there. Like, I would be more intrigued if they printed him successfully into a human body and he was this scientific marvel, and then they were experimenting on him. But this is just William being tested for Fidelity by a host. It's the same as what we've seen through the whole season, and I don't really see where it could go. So yeah, I'm not really sure. Vegeta launched Final Flash. What's your take on the final bonus scene with William and his host daughter? Yeah, so I was just talking about that. I'm still kind of I'm honestly lost on it. Either it has to do something with Bernard or Dolores. One of them has a hand in it. I don't like the way Bernard and Dolores ended off. The fact that she brought him back because she has choice and she's better than the humans, because she went against her survival instincts and brought back the person who's going to fight her. But I think that's a weird duality, how now these two are just sitting in the same house and they're going to be fighting each other. So I don't know. The dystopian future thing, the scene as a whole, I thought it was unnecessary. I like how they're hinting at future seasons, but there's enough timelines in the show, and they have it self-contained. Why do we need to see the future that far in advance? Because so far for me, the reason timelines exist in season 1 and season 2 is because they served a purpose. In season 1, the timelines existed because they were through the eyes of Dolores. It made sense. It was her jumping back and forth in her mind, trying to piece together herself. And that's why the timelines made sense. This season, the timelines made sense because of Bernard. Bernard was going on his journey of consciousness, and he was piecing that together. Whereas this end credit scene was like, boom, here's the future of the show, everyone. This is what you can expect. And I just didn't like it because I feel like it was a timeline that was introduced for intrigue, but really out of nowhere. Unless they're going to do it through William. Unless they're going to say like, oh, these timeline jumps are through the context of William. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, because it also gives us the worry that everything that we're seeing now is in the past, because the present is actually this dystopian future that we've been presented. So I think it creates a lot of just intricacies in the show that now we have something to work toward, if that makes sense. Brenda Starr, maybe the hosts in the future need William for some reason we don't know about. Yes, I agree with that. And there's a lot that they could use William for. I just don't necessarily know. I'm trying to understand why. Like, William is a very significant character. He is the one character who he feels like he belongs in another world. He feels like the character or the person that he was chalked up to be isn't true. He feels like he's a good guy at heart. But everything that William feels is not reciprocated or felt by everybody, because everyone thinks that William is a monster. So I don't know what the host would want with William. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. So I'm very confused, and I feel like they butchered that character. And on again, I don't get the message that humans are bad. Just that most live in loops and don't exercise the potential for consciousness and free will. Most of us predictably respond to our environment. Yeah, I agree. I like how they explore those themes, like, oh, humans aren't free because they always are true to human nature. But I agree with that not all humans are bad. We see Sizemore sacrifice himself. We see people make these decisions. And we see humans change their drives too. They go against this survival instinct that the show is claiming all the time. So that's why, like, a part of me, like, the producers are saying over and over again that, oh yeah, humans are simple. Like, it seems like that's their actual thesis. That's how they actually feel, which is fine. But then why are you creating such an in-depth world and that questions these beliefs? Like, William questions that straight up, where he's seen as that villain, he's seen as that bad human, but there's so much depth to him. So I don't know if they're going to explore that more in the future. But I really don't know, because I think if you make this a one-side story where they just make humans seem evil and hosts seem good, then it isn't compelling. There's no inner dialogue or debate. The audience member doesn't feel like they're being pulled to either side. I think it's just not interesting storytelling. So I don't necessarily like that direction that they're going with it. The programmer of video games, plot hole. William's profile should have only showed things of younger William, did not in the present version. Another plot hole is that William shouldn't have had recordings of him wearing the white hat. Totally agree. I brought that out in the breakdown video. I talk about it because it makes no sense. We shouldn't have seen anything to do with William in the white hat. And this is William's profile. When they look at William's profile, you see William in the white hat, like, doing evil things. And that shouldn't have been recorded because it wasn't implemented until after William lost Dolores and then purchased the park. And we shouldn't have seen William dragging Dolores into the barn because that happened after. Unless they were trying to tell us that, oh, William visits Dolores all the time and does the same thing. But I agree, there were some inconsistencies there. I don't know why they put those in. I think it was just late. I just don't think they were thinking. I don't think they were thinking. And that's proven. It is it's not necessarily a plot hole as it is a mistake. It genuinely was a mistake, because the show did tell us that Logan has no profile because he hasn't been in the park after the events of 30 years ago with William and Dolores. So if he doesn't have a recording, that means William doesn't have a recording. So that's been proven that it was a mistake. Oliver Quinn. The idea of this episode is we have so much to write for season 3. Here's a bunch of cool stuff we can use for flashbacks later. This season was made so that they could get off horses. Done. True. I just think this season could have done a much better job telling us that. If their end goal was to have Dolores in Charlotte's body, which I thought was a good plot twist. I thought that was a genuine good plot twist. But if they're going to tell us that, and they want to get her off the Westworld island, and they want to get her in the real world, then they did that. They did that well. I just think the whole William thing, that could have been incorporated in there. They didn't have to turn his character into nothing, which makes me think that William might be getting a visit from Dolores next season. But yeah, I really don't understand, and I don't like that fact how they were writing just for season 3, and I don't think that that's the case. I think they wanted to tell a really compelling and good story here. I just feel like they missed the opportunity to make it very self-contained. Like Westworld season 1 is like a movie. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and you don't have to do a season 2. And season 2 could have been a beginning, middle, and end, and finished off nicely for season 3. But season 2 finished off with so many questions, and that's why I'm nervous. Is that a lot of people who watched the show was like, "Why am I even watching this?" Because it had no finale. It had no finish. It didn't wrap anything up at all. All the questions that they asked were just gone. Like there was nothing. And the Charlotte Hale twist, as much as I liked it, it was never a question. It was just a reveal. Whereas all the questions are like about fidelity, questions about the door. What does it mean? And everything that they introduced with the door had nothing to do with the actual door itself. So, yeah, I think they could have done a better job, for sure. Pat Hectic. Why is Westworld the most confusing series in TV history? I don't know if it's the most confusing. I love the way they're telling stories. Like I love how they're telling these shows, how they like using timelines and they like the audience to figure it out. But this episode or this season, I think they unnecessarily tried to complicate it for no reason. Like I feel like I thought they were doing so well up until episode 9. They had everything laid out, but they didn't capitalize. So I'm going to be interested to see how long they can keep up this confusion, like intrigue type of style. Because I feel like it really could have worked out, but they didn't capitalize. They didn't follow through, and I think that's going to hurt the show, unfortunately. Safari Rod, do you think the ending was a bit was a lot like Ex Machina? I was watching it with Trevor and some of my friends, and we immediately said Ex Machina. It's exactly like it. And for those of you who don't know, the robot escapes. That's the ending, and it makes sense. I wish that to be honest, I wish they pushed the escape off until the next season, but I guess we'll see the hosts operating in the real world. But I did think it was very reminiscent of Ex Machina, and I think they did. I like the way they did it. Like she has 5 marbles now. Who are those? They have marbles of 5 hosts that we have yet to see who they are. So that's interesting. But yeah, I find the more I look back on the show, I think they did a good job. A couple things that I'm bent out of shape on is I think it's just William. But I think it's a big complaint because William is such a big part of the show and he's such an important character, and they chalked him up to nothing. So I think that is a big mistake that they made. But Oliver Quinn, William was always going to be in a fidelity test. The question is whether the leftover humans are trying to use him to stop the hosts, or Dolores is preparing him to lead the hosts. Based on what we've seen in this episode, I would say Dolores hates William. She thinks he's a monster, all this stuff. So that leads me more to Bernard's behind it, because Grace is Emily is a host. She was printed and she's a host, and she's there testing for fidelity because she's his daughter. And she calls him William, which tells us that there's a disassociation there. So I don't know what the motive would be. I don't think Dolores would have him lead the hosts. Well, the one way I would say is because she wants to kill all the humans, and William, that evil William that they're trying to tell us he is, would be perfect for that role. So that's the way. Or from Bernard's perspective, William could be some type of a breakthrough, because Bernard, he's conflicted between humans and hosts, and if he only knew the truth about William, I think it provides more context to humans. Like, he's seen as this evil guy, but he is a human who just desperately wants to be a part of the host world. God, see, I'm going on a tyrant trying to explain this, but I really don't know. So please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'll read it and give you my thoughts. I'm going to try and come up with something in a later video, but it's so hard because it came so out of left field on these fidelity tests with William. I don't really understand it. Jake Ham. Could William's daughter come back since she's in the park for so long wearing the hat, or does it take more to upload? I think they said that she wasn't in there much, but I don't think it's a problem to create her because, you know, they got some of her choices and then they can just throw that in the forge and work that out. So I think we could see her come back, but my one confusion is why was Emily there? Why is William being tested for fidelity? Because as far as I'm concerned, humans are flawed. And what Ford wanted is for hosts to find themselves original work and just create a world of hosts. So why would these hosts go back in time, or not go back? Why would these hosts start bringing humans into host bodies? They wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. Or Dolores wouldn't. Bernard would. Okay, so now I think we're starting to find answers here. Bernard, trying to protect the humans, would probably try and start transferring them into host bodies. Okay, I think that's starting to make more sense now. So I think we could see William's daughter come back because of Bernard. I think, if anything, Bernard is trying to protect the humans and the hosts to live together as one. And I think Bernard's solution to do that is to bring humans to their level, because he wouldn't believe that humans are innately evil because of their programming. So I think he's going to try and save people's lives by transferring them into their bodies to protect them from Dolores. Julianne 089. Everything doesn't fit. All key reveals in the finale were not supported. Like Bernard de-addressing his memories after Elsie died, but earlier it's Elsie who figures out his memories are de-addressed. Oh yeah, that's another one. Good catch. What I will say there is that I think she was speaking more to Ford being in his code, and then later in the episode, it's revealed that he has to scramble up his memories to make sure nobody catches him. So I think I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't know. It was okay. Julianne 089. The end credit scene in the forge is filled with sand, but when they all went in the forge at the flood, the forge was fine. Yeah, so that tells us that it's in the future. Whatever the future that holds, the forge is in rough shape and Westworld seems vacant. I just made a comment, says, do you think that Papadelis was referring to Bernard being created through Dolores' memories when he talks about the father being the devil's reflection? Oh, that's an interesting interpretation. I like that a lot. I don't know if he was referring to that, though. I think it was just his... I think it was him laying down dialogue that applied to him and his experience, as well as it's a comment that speaks to the whole context of the show and the human condition. Like, we think that up in the skies there's a god, but in reality it's the devil looking at himself in a mirror. So I think it can apply, that essentially there's good and evil in everything. But I don't think it specifically applies to that example. Fernandez T says, imagine he transferred, excuse me, imagine he transferred when it fades to him becoming Yul Brynner, Man in Black from the original episode. He lives in forever as a host. That's actually, it's funny because that's one of the reasons why I'm nervous, is because I feel like the TV show is going to be like, oh, look, a callback to the original movie, The Man in Black. Look at him in the flesh. He's a host who's now evil. He's an evil killing machine. And I'm actually nervous that they're going to do that, just to try and call back to the movies. Oliver or Marilyn Bentley. Hey, how's it going? Oliver Quinn. I'll buy that he's been making choices consciously to pass fidelity test. That he has tracked his actions methodically and will pass the test. The question is whether a certain choice, equalizer. Yeah, will he pass the fidelity test? And we haven't even seen anyone pass the fidelity test. Like, what does that mean? Did they really want William to prove that he's not enslaved to his core drive survival, which would mean that he wouldn't kill his daughter and he wouldn't end up in the same spot as before? I'm not sure. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see. And by the way, I don't like how they handled like the code for humans. Like, humans are remarkably simple. They all follow a similar line of code. I just feel like it was kind of oversimplified. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Pedro T, what do you think are the main open questions? The finale was so different than expected that I don't even know what I'm confused about. I get it. Yeah, I'm irritated because the questions have remained pretty much the same. There's questions regarding fidelity testing, like how deep is that? What are the intricacies of it? What are they achieving? What are they after? Like, obviously they want to transfer, but I feel like now it's gotten so convoluted. Like, the humans wanted to test for fidelity because they wanted to be immortal. So why is it in a dystopian world where you have a host, Emily, where it's clear that hosts have somewhat taken over? Why are they pursuing this human motive? Other questions I have now are about the simulation. I thought it was dumb how Dolores sent them off to she beamed them off to a location. Why are they beamed off to coordinates? They're on a computer bank. It doesn't really make any sense to me. And Dolores said that no one will be able to access them now. The doors are now closed. So essentially you have an alternate universe. A question I have is that alternate universe going to come back? Even though they told us that it wasn't. But it could, and I think it could have a lot of meaning to it, because once Dolores like tears the world down and she needs to rebuild, you can go back to that simulated society and see what these hosts have developed on their own, a unique society that we've never seen before, based on just them being very efficient, conscious hosts. So I'm interested to see what, like, if we visit them through the door again, I'm interested to see what kind of society they build. Alien, if they kill off another character and resurrect them again, it's really hard to care about anyone. Yeah, I agree. It's something that they've introduced over and over again, especially now since the brain capsules are bulletproof. So every time somebody dies, it's like, okay, just get the brain capsule and reprint them a body. So I feel like that's an issue. I also feel like, what was I going to say? Anyways, yeah, I feel like it's a big issue. We'll see what happens. Like Lawrence, I'm holding out that he lives because it's his brain capsule's fine. Oh, what I was going to say is just the inconsistencies of what makes one of them die. Like a shot to the head would kill them. Like Maeve died with 2 shots to the chest. Dolores survived 4 shots to the chest and she was okay. Clementine was known as this dangerous weapon and it took her 2 shots and she was down. So I'm just trying to understand not only the consistencies about who can come back and who can't. I'm trying to understand, why do some hosts live longer than others? It seems like it's just plot convenience. But yeah, Oliver Quinn. We start 150 years later. They've rebuilt Westworld and a host of prisoners, and know it, but can't control their actions. Living hell. Ford comes back as Godzilla. Nice. Hayek Sekane. In a scene that Westworld co-creator John Nolan literally rewrote last night. What? I didn't know this. In a scene that Westworld co-creator Jonathan Nolan literally rewrote the night before they shot it, we find out not only that Stubbs is a host, hired. Okay, I need to look into that. I didn't know that. He rewrote Ashley's scene. That's crazy. I feel like this is a show where you don't just rewrite things. You need to plot it out. That's why I was annoyed, because I feel like in one of the interviews, Jonathan Nolan said, "Hey, fans are starting to catch on to what we're doing, so we fudged it up and tried to make it so they don't, the audience doesn't guess." That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. You know what I mean? You're developing a plot, and you're putting in hints and details on what's going to happen. The worst thing you can do is change it up, because you have to serve the plot in the story. You don't serve the fans because they guess the right thing. You don't just change it up. You don't. I don't understand that. You don't harm the story for the sake of people not guessing it. It just doesn't make any sense. Fernandez T. I don't see the point in continuing after the robots are free. Exactly. Lots of murder of real humans. Screw hosts. They aren't human. Feelings are not. I think they could tell a compelling story. Like, I like Bernard. I think I like Dolores. I'm a little frustrated because I was defending her a lot, because I was saying she has to be the Judas steer. And this is another thing with the story. Like, we see that she's not a bad person, but she thinks that killing the humans is what's necessary. And she isn't wrong. But her and Bernard disagree. I think you can tell like an interesting story there. But yeah, when the robots are free, I think that's when the story will wrap up. Like when they take over the world, essentially. And I feel like Fernandez T, I think you and a lot of other people won't really want to watch that, just because it's people like to root for their own kind, and it's tough rooting for a show where the host wins. Hi, Exicane. So long ago, the old man, he can barely remember when wink wink, but his core drive is to protect every host in the park. I wish I knew what you're talking about, but I don't. I'm sorry. But then she writes again, Nolan's last minute changes were meant to reshape the execution of the scene, but the plan to reveal Stubbs as a host was a long time in the making. Okay, so as long as that's there, as long as the integrity of the scene was kept, but they altered it for effect, I'm fine with that. As long as the integrity of the show has been kept, that's fine. Brian Alfred, what happens if Westworld doesn't make it to 5 seasons that they're hoping for? Nothing. It's canceled. I'm actually kind of nervous, actually, that it will be canceled. Viewership's gone down. I think people had a really poor reception of season 2. And I think season 2 could have been better than season 1, in my opinion, if they capitalized on everything in the finale, and they didn't do that. And I think a lot of fans were left more confused in the finale than not, and I think that's an issue. I think the finale needs to wrap everything up in a nice bow. If you're doing a show that is meant to ask questions and theorize and predict, you have to provide the answers. You have to wrap it up. You have to create this nice contained story, and they didn't do that. I feel like a lot of fans, the viewership of the show dropped off significantly. Season 3 was approved, and I think after season 3, it might be canceled if they can't get viewership up. So it does make me a little nervous. I still can't believe they missed the door as a metaphor to humans transcending into a machine or singularity. That's what it was going for. Like, that's what I don't understand. They have the maze. It's the journey to consciousness, one's own center. The door is the perfect symbolism for walking through one's own being into another. But instead they made the door a physical thing into this fake simulated environment, which they didn't hint at all. And William was asked to go through the door. Alonzo told William, I'll see you in the valley beyond. Like, what was the point of all this then? I really don't understand. So I would love to ask Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, like, what in the hell were you thinking? And like, where are you planning on pushing this further? Like, I don't understand where they were going, because they laid everything so perfectly. For them not to capitalize on it, it kind of blows my mind. Buffy Targaryen, since William is getting fidelity testing, who's behind the testing? I said it earlier, I think it's Bernard. I think the reason why is because Dolores especially has no incentive to push humans into a host body. She has no incentive because she wants to exterminate humans. Bernard is unique because he's caught between humans and hosts, and I feel like Bernard's genius way of saving people is by transferring them into host bodies. And I feel like William is the perfect candidate to try and understand the human condition. And I think Bernard will try and study William and understand and potentially learn that humans aren't these like paint by numbers, very two-dimensional beings that Logan discovered in the Forge. So I think he could potentially study William. But we'll see. There's a lot to that. I'd be shocked if it was just some random like character. Like, there has to be somebody behind it, and I think Bernard is significant enough to be behind the fidelity testing. Oliver Quinn, it feels like the process of removing humans from level 5 park security issues would have standard operating procedure that would trump Ford's I built a dummy security guard. Yes, I agree. I feel like there's some inconsistencies like that in the show. I feel like, to be honest, a lot of them didn't bother me. I was fine with that, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Vegeta launched Final Flash. Maybe the scene with Dolores recreating Bernard in the China house is the same timeline as the last bonus scene with William and his daughter. This can be an intro for season 3. I don't think so. I think the producers of the show even said that this William scene is meant to be farther in the future. It's going to be answered not in season 3, but later. I just don't think it makes sense for the park. Dolores and Bernard ended up pretty much out of the park. And I think for the Forge to deteriorate that bad, it's far in the future. And I don't think it's during the same timeline. Because then you'd have to print Grace or Emily, and I think to me, it doesn't make sense for it to be on the same timeline. Next season, we'll have one good episode, just like this season. Effin' Ghost Nation. Was that your favorite episode? I had a couple of key episodes that I loved. I would say the top 3, not in a particular order. Episode 4, episode 8, I think that's the Akichita episode, and episode 9. I think the episode with James Delos doing fidelity testing, I thought that was an unbelievable episode. I think it provided a lot of questions, and I think it did great storytelling, even though it wasn't capitalized on later in the season. But I love that episode. I agree. Ghost Nation and Akichita was the top 3. It was really up. I loved it. I loved the episode. I loved how different it was. It focused on character development. It's annoying because that episode didn't lead anywhere. It didn't provide us. It was backwards storytelling. It didn't provide us any new information. It didn't flesh out the plot more. It just gave us a story. I really enjoyed it though. And episode 9, I loved. Learning more about William as a character, it diving deep into who he is, how he's a man who belongs in the wrong world. I thought it was excellent. And the worst part is that all 3 of these episodes were degraded by the finale, because none of them, all the setup that all 3 of these episodes did, turned into nothing. That development of Akichita turned into him running away into a falsified world. It resulted in learning the details of Man in Black, and he became simply a guy who was nothing but a 2-bit villain who shot himself in the fingers and ended up on an elevator. And then the fidelity testing, that really didn't go anywhere either. They were hinting over and over again about human transferring into hosts and blah, blah, blah. And and we didn't get that answer. And I feel like we should have, and I feel like that was a big mistake. So those are my three favorites. Billy Lee. Teddy suggests giving the cattle shelter to wait out the flies. Could this be foreshadowing to William being the last living link? I don't know what it has to do with William being the last living link. I need to think about this for a second. Because the context of this comment was the cattle are the hosts that aren't conscious. And I'm going to try and boost myself up here. And I don't necessarily know what you mean. I saw the flies as humans, and the shelter was for the hosts who aren't conscious yet. So I don't know if it really hints at William necessarily. But I do think that Teddy and William do share kind of a connection, a very deep-rooted connection. But I think that quote could be interpreted from like Bernard's perspective, where the cattle that are being sheltered from the flies could end up being the humans. And I think William could be a part of that. Marion Bentley, who else do you think Dolores took with her to the mainland after Bernard? Did she take Teddy or maybe Maeve? I don't think she took Teddy because she downloaded Teddy to the in the door into the Eden, the Valley Beyond. So Teddy's there. I think it would be pretty funny if Teddy's like, I don't want to be in your world anymore, and he kills himself, and then he comes back. He's like, fuck, and he's like in the future with Dolores, and he's meant to kill all these humans. I feel like that wouldn't work out. I think Teddy's character is retired. We know it's Bernard because she brings back Bernard, so that's one of them checked off. So we have 4 remaining. I think Hector or Armistice, I think they're not relevant enough. I don't think Dolores cares about them. It could be Maeve, but I honestly feel like Maeve's story is going to be in Westworld. So honestly, I'm kind of left flabbergasted as to who it could be. I know one is Abernathy. So we have Bernard, Abernathy. And I think Dolores would want Bernard to try and help her with her father's coding module to try and fix him. Who else could it be? Angela was blown up, but I wouldn't throw it past them to bring her back. Lawrence is a possibility. And I think the producers of the show said that some of these people are going to come out of nowhere. They're going to be hosts that we didn't expect for her to bring. One of them could be Rebus, the character that we rarely see. But I'm not necessarily sure, other than it's going to be Bernard, Abernathy, Maeve is a possibility. Pretty much any main host character is a possibility. But yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I would think it would be so much more interesting if Dolores had some human-based marbles. The red ones, instead of them just all being hosts, I think it would be cool if she had like a William one. I think that would be very interesting. But yeah. Steve Cancel, what's going on, buddy? Julianne089. I think Bernard might crack the code to hybrid humans. Good humans. Maybe he will start with Elsie. That's perfect. I agree with you. I think that's what we're seeing here, is that this is Bernard's work, and I think Bernard, in order to try and save the humans, he's trying to bring them to their level. Because Bernard has developed those relationships with humans, and he knows that there's good in them. And I think Maeve is going to join that sentiment because of Felix, because of Sizemore. So I think it's the journey of finding that the door. It's the ability of getting humans into a host state because Bernard believes that they are worthy of that. And I think Dolores could disagree in that. Hey, that's a future season. You could have host civil war. But I don't know. And that would be interesting because it would stretch Ford's storyline of the door much farther than season 2, which I'm hoping for, because I hope to God that it wasn't just something thrown in there for this sake. But yeah, as we keep talking about it, I'm coming more and more to believe that Bernard is behind this future fidelity testing, because he wants to save the humans, and this is the way he knows how. He's trying to understand the human psyche, because he himself, he was programmed to believe that he was human. So I think he's going to try and help bring Elsie back and try and do what he can. But yeah, the programmer of video games asks, Elsie would have lived if she didn't betray Bernard, like Ford predicted and warned, and helped Charlotte. I agree with you. And that's a part of their story that they're trying to tell, that humans operate based on survival. But at the same time, Elsie stuck with her own kind, which makes sense. But at the end of the day, she still had the best interests of Bernard. She still wanted to help out Bernard. And I think that relationship is really important. So that's what I'm struggling with. That's what I'm struggling with the show, is they're saying that humans are bad, but they're showing good qualities. So I'm not sure. Marion Bentley. I have to rewatch to try and make the timeline of this finale. Almost like, okay, this is in the present time, this scene is 2 weeks ago, etc. Wish someone on YouTube would do that. I'd pay for it. Oh, hey, I might look into that. We'll see. I'll watch the finale one more time, even though it makes me so angry. But yeah, we'll see. Let me go here. Sorry, guys. You guys are having a conversation. I'm trying to sort through all of this here. Marion Bentley, are we 100% sure that Stubbs is a host? Have the creators confirmed this? Some in the community do not think he's a host. I don't know if the producers confirmed it. I've confirmed it to myself, because I feel like that scene was very over the head, like just beating you over the head with the fact that he's a host, to the point now where if you have a scene like that and Ashley isn't a host, then it's a crapshoot. It's a shit shoot. It's like, it makes no sense. If you're going to have Ashley talk about his core drives and him mysteriously being hired by Ford at a time, it was so long ago he doesn't remember, all these hints, and beating us over the head with it to tell us that no, he's actually human, it makes no sense. It's pointless. So I think he is a host, just because if that scene took place and he's in fact a human, then it makes no sense, and it's a waste of time. But I wouldn't throw that past them, because they've done that before. Sugabar Sekon, the show is good, but 10 years is a long time to wait to get this story arc completed. What do you mean 10 years? Are you saying every 2 years they're doing a season and they're doing 5 seasons total? Yeah. I don't think it's going to be 10 years. I think it's 1.5 years per season. But I think that's the way TV works today. If you want high quality TV, it's going to take a while to produce. And I'm interested to see where the show goes. I feel like I did in season 1, where you don't know how much farther they can go. Once the humans break out into the world, what's going to be the compelling story other than them just taking over the world? So they're going to have to figure it out, and they're going to have to get fans on board, because I don't think people are on board with this show right now. Oliver Quinn. Okay, I got it. It's 250 years in the future. Bernard is creating a hybrid god host to lead us in a battle with an alien race. It's William. Also, Ford comes back as Godzilla. I'm digging the predictions. A lot of Godzilla predictions, I'm noticing. Crazy shit. Ryan Brawler. Charlotte was a real heel character. Yeah, I like Charlotte as a character. I thought the actress did a bad job playing Dolores. But other than that, I'm interested to see who Charlotte actually is, what host she is. It seems like Charlotte's body is going to be it's going to be the stand-in body for the hosts. So I think Dolores finally built herself again, and then she's going to give that marble. Then she's going to take the next marble that she wants and puts it in Charlotte. and she's going to be helped out, and until they can print their actual body. So who's in Charlotte's body? I don't know. It might be Maeve. It might be, all these different characters, or Dolores. Maybe if it's possible, she might have created a new host that we haven't seen yet. So I'm interested to see who she is. Steve Cancel. Jonathan Nolan said he believes Ashley is a host, so that settles it. Wow. Okay, there you go. And I think the producers of the show need to stop talking. I think it's a problem when you have a show and people have to ask you questions to clarify. The show should speak for itself. So it's irritating me how Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy are coming forward being like, oh yeah, we agree that the human condition is flawed and based on survival and all these things, and they're saying that William is an evil character. Like shush, like be quiet and let the show speak for itself. So yes, that's the one issue I have with the producers of the show. Javon Timmons, Felix struck me as a host. That's interesting. He might be, but I feel they can make him a host. I'd be so annoyed if he was. Watch them do that though. Every human that shows any sense of like goodwill or good choices or sympathy for the host is going to be a host. But I think you got to keep him a human. I think there's only so many times you can jump into that trope of always a host. So I don't think so. I think Ford chose him to look after Maeve because Ford knew of his mind. He knew that Felix would have the soft heart with Maeve. So yeah. Mary G, am I the only person who sees that William / the Man in Black is in hell? The classic morality play for his cruelty. Dolores maimed him but refused to kill him so that he would suffer. He wanted consequences. Yeah, no, you're right. And the producers of the show say it all the time. They're saying that he's stuck in the loop of his sins. And Abernathy says it in season 1. He says that, what does he say? He's you're in like a making of your own sins or something like that. And I think that's definitely what they're trying to portray, that William is stuck with the choices that he's made and he is paying for it. So that's what I think. But yeah, I'm not sure. Marion Bentley at BuzzTox. I see super chat here. Before I proceed to send one, are you accepting them? I don't like, you don't have to send me anything. It's okay. It's open, but no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I was going to wrap up now anyway, to be honest with you. I can take a couple of last questions, but I feel like it's getting a bit late, and I'm going to start working on. I have a lot of stuff to do actually. So start listing your questions finally, and then we're going to do a wrap up because my throat's starting to hurt. But I'm just going to quickly talk about the channel. So the channel right now, we're in a lull because Game of Thrones doesn't come out for a while, and Westworld is done. So what I'm thinking is, I got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life too that I got to sort out. So what I will say is Westworld, I want to do a season 3 video. I want to do a couple more videos wrapping it up. But then I think I'm going to take a break from Westworld. I'm going to lean more towards Game of Thrones. I'm going to start watching Game of Thrones right now because I want to get back into that mode. And those predictions are a priority, and I might start making other Game of Thrones videos. But that is uncertain at this point. My priority is just to get those prediction videos done. I know exactly the direction I want it to go. And episode 3 that I'm writing right now is going to be a big one. And everyone's going to have to rewatch episode 1 and 2 to get familiar with what my predictions were. I think I'm even going to have to do it before I record it. But that's the process. I'm going to start wrapping up Westworld and start bringing in Game of Thrones. But I think I might take a week break just to kind of, relax, get back into the mode of Game of Thrones, because it's weird because I haven't looked at it in so long that I'm almost kind of forgetting it. So yeah, I need to watch Game of Thrones again. Steve Cancel, I loved what you said about Ford. Should have said Bernard was his favorite. I'm so mad that they didn't do that now. It would have been so much more powerful. And to be honest, Steve, that's how I feel about everything in the finale, is that every time they wrapped up a storyline, in my mind, I'm like, they could have done it 10 times better and made it 10 times more powerful. Ford saying Maeve was his favorite had absolutely no purpose at all. Zero. The only purpose it served was to tell fans that she made her own choice in getting off that train, which I still disagree. I think it's the stupidest thing ever, because he literally said, I wanted you to be free. I wanted you to go and run and be free in the city. The story of freedom, of escape, whatever, even though that goes against Ford, who Ford is. Ford told Bernard that he felt like they had to stay in Westworld and they had to suffer. And that totally goes against Ford's character, just because Maeve was his favorite, even though that favoritism came out of absolutely nowhere. It was just used to tell us that Maeve was conscious and made that decision herself, even though we never saw her journey. We never saw her journey. We saw Akijita journey to consciousness. We saw Dolores journey to consciousness. We saw Bernard journey to consciousness. With Maeve, we didn't see anything. We saw her. She was literally told what to do until the moment she got on that train. So you're telling me that Maeve is conscious just by being told what to do to be on that train? It makes absolutely no sense. So that's why I thought this season should have been a journey for her to find her own voice. And they blew that too. They gave her a voice to be able to control things. And she said that she's like, I'm finding a new voice. But really, it came out of nowhere. What they should have done is they should have said that Maeve is on the path to consciousness. So sure, she made the decision to go rescue her daughter, but that wasn't her being conscious yet. That was her on the path. And during the show, when she said, I'm finding my own voice, they should have said, what they should have done is they should have said, okay, Maeve is finding her own center. She's becoming conscious. She's on this journey with Bernard, and that's what this season is going to be about. And the closer she gets to consciousness, the more she can control the hosts, the more powerful she gets, because she is a unique character, because she's the first host who is ever given complete access to controlling the host in season 1. So it makes sense as her mind is opening up, as she's becoming conscious, she's getting access to the mesh network to control all these hosts. That way it makes sense. She's becoming conscious, and it's not just written in there for shits and giggles. It actually makes sense, and it adds to the plot, and it gives us a reason why she has these powers. And then that way Ford can be, or Bernard can be Ford's favorite, because it's a better symbolism and it makes more sense. Anyways, Ostro 1980. So is it all of future host William Fidelity testing being done in the Forge? He isn't actually going through storyline, right? Well, he's being tested for Fidelity. So I think what I'm led to believe, which I think is kind of dumb, is that he is going through, he's reliving that experience in the park of when he killed his daughter, of when he was going for the door, which is really nothing. And he was reliving it every single time because he had the same injuries. His fingers were missing. He had the same gun wounds, and he ended up in the exact same place because he made the exact same choices. So I think it's being done in the same place. I think it's being done in Westworld, but it's been run down. It's been vacant for so long, and it's far in the future because the water's gone. Sand has made its way into the Forge. So I think he's repeating that over and over again. And I hope to God that this is a part of Ford's storyline called The Door. I hope that is a reveal in the future, and I'm going to count on it because I feel like they laid down those hints. So I think it has to be like that. Brian Alfred, they can't take 10 or even 8.5 years to lose the audience. Game of Thrones. This is not Game of Thrones. I agree. This isn't Game of Thrones, and it's a different audience. We're finding with this show, it's not holding the people that Game of Thrones does, because Game of Thrones is more, it appeals to everyone. Westworld is just confusing for some people, and they don't have the patience for it. So you're right. It isn't. And I think Westworld needs to have a very strict plan, and they need to try and wrap this series up. And I hope they can get through it before it gets canceled. And Marion Penley, oh my goodness, $15. Thank you so much for that donation. I really appreciate it. That is so nice of you. And Mary Lynn says, Max, thank you so much for all of your time making these videos, hosting live streams, etc. I'd be honored to be a mod in the future live chats. If you make a timeline vid for the finale, I'll pay for it. You don't have to pay for it. Thank you so much. I'll get that to you. In future live chats, I need to take a look at that mod stuff. I'm not really familiar with it, so yeah, I would love to opt you in as a mod. I'm not necessarily sure how it works, but yeah, we'll figure that out later. Hey, you are awesome. T5000, 10,000, I think. Thank you so much. You're awesome too. And Javin Timms, she's seen the daughter and remembered hers. I don't know what you're saying, but sure. But that's it, everybody. I'm going to wrap up this chat for Westworld finale. Let me know if, when's our next live chat going to be? I need to think this through. It's hard not watching a TV show because, sorry, guys. Let me just think this through. So I'm going to take maybe a week off. I'm going to start coming back into Game of Thrones. I'm trying to think of an excuse to do a live chat. Let me know what you think down below. What kind of live chat should we do? Should we talk about more Westworld? Should we do a Game of Thrones live chat just for fun? I want to keep doing these because I love chatting with you guys, and yeah, I get a kick out of it. It's great. Steve Cancel says, by the way, one thing I'll say is the soundtrack for the season was phenomenally gorgeous. Some amazing tracks. I totally agree. I buy all the tracks. I love Westworld music. The composer, Raymond Dworgi, I don't know how to say his name, for Game of Thrones and for Westworld, he does an amazing job. The music is the best. But yeah, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys later. Expect Game of Thrones to come out, and I'm going to get some Westworld videos going. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.